Well, hello, Sandy.
Amy, hello. New background.
New background. I've moved.
Hey, how
It's,
was it?
it was good. I love a good project, and moving is a project. And, I got a lot done. And plus, it was Mother's Day over the weekend. So happy Mother's Day.
You?
So I got to get some flowers on the front porch. And so, anyway, I'm feeling a little settled.
Yay. That's
Yeah.
amazing. I
Yeah.
guess that's why you are the organizer and the project planner and all those things you're so good at. Some people would be like paralyzed in fear at all the boxes in the work.
Oh, yeah. No, I am like, check, 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 done, done, done. So, anyway, yeah, there's a strategy here. And anyway, we're settled. I can sleep better if I'm unpacked and all settled, which we are. I know. So we had to move one time where we moved the weekend before Thanksgiving and we hosted Thanksgiving at our house.
No, how'd that
Yeah.
go?
And it was actually moving from Kansas City to Omaha. It was our
Okay.
very
Guess
first, and
what?
we had people for Thanksgiving and little kid. And yeah, it was, you know, it's just, it was okay because I like to be organized and get things
Right,
done.
right.
Plus, we don't have a lot of stuff. So, anyway, happy Mother's Day to you. What'd you do for the holiday?
You know what? I don't know. Every day's Mother's Day, right? So I'm kind of that way with holidays in general. Like, why wait to celebrate? But the big celebration isn't so much about me. I have my mom, and she's
Yeah.
healthy and happy. And I am very well aware that many people our age do not have their mothers. So I'm probably celebrating more for her. But I mean, I have three grown sons and they're very good about texting, calling. I've gotten texts and voicemail the night before. Do I expect flowers and cards? No, it used to be they'd say to me, "Oh, I'll get you something. I'll send it later." And it's just like, it's all good. Next time we're together, we'll figure something out, or it's a random thing that if they think of me another time, I'd rather have that than have them rush and get something. And again, they're young adults. So
Right. Yeah. Same. Yeah. It was kind of quiet here as far as the kids go, because everybody was busy doing stuff, working and
yeah,
just off and out of town. So my kids actually weren't around, but that's okay.
we did have a beautiful day though. And I so appreciate the beat. I got a long run in. We can open the doors again. Now
Yeah.
I gave look at you had a move and you still got
Yeah.
planters and things done. I gave myself some grace and said, we're gonna have a nice week. I'll get the furniture out. It was really the first nice day to get the furniture out, get some planting done, but I'm going to take my time and do it this week.
Nice. Good for you. Good for you. Good for you. Okay, so today let's do podcast talking and talk about our topic.
Yes.
And not just Mother's Day, which yeah. Um, so today we're talking about medical advocacy. And this kind of came up with I have been going to a new doctor and because I've moved to Kansas City, and through that I've tried some doctors, and I went to a doctor about a month ago, and she was wonderful, and actually not a doctor, she was um, a nurse. What is it? A
A
nurse practitioner?
practitioner or a
Yeah,
physician's assistant.
yeah, she was a nurse practitioner. And she was lovely. She was a very good at asking really good questions and
Okay.
helping come up with solutions for things. And it was just little things that were nuisances. I'm going to say fairly healthy, thankfully, but just these nuisance items. But one of the things, my cholesterol is a little high, and I have a family history of heart issues. And one of the things she recommended for me was a calcium coronary score or scan. I'm sorry, a calcium coronary scan,
Okay.
or maybe it's a coronary calcium scan.
I'm following you with the coronary. I'm intrigued with is the calcium the buildup? Like so they scan to see if there's any buildup in the heart. Look at me, non-medical, saying
Exactly.
this out.
Yeah, good
Okay.
for you.
Okay.
That's exactly what it is. It's a check to see if there's any artery plaque. And that's what it says, artery plaque, artery blockages, or anything like that. And so, listen, this test, I have never even heard of this test. We have a family history. It is not covered by insurance. It was a CAT scan, I think, where they get you go in that big tube,
Okay, so
right?
was it as threatening as an MRI? I mean, did you really feel, or was it? Because
No,
big tube, I think of MRI, and I got claustrophobic when I did that.
I was I think my head was out. I can't remember. Anyway, I had to put my hands up and I had to breathe in and out. It was like 15 seconds. That's
Okay,
about how long it took
okay.
and cost me $50.
And was it an actual CT? Was that the machine that they use, the equipment, or does it have its own? So it's something they can do through a CT.
Yes.
$50. Wow. Okay.
$50. Okay. And I got my results. The best result you can get is a 0 and it goes up to 300. And I got a 0. I
Wow.
was really happy. I know. I was like, I don't know. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Anyway, I was super happy because now, okay, so this is good information, but this does not mean that there's no risk. You know what I mean? Like she was very clear of this is good information because we can do some treatments if needed, if cholesterol is affecting this, whatever. But doesn't mean that in 3 weeks I couldn't have a heart attack. All right. So it's not saying this isn't going to happen. So,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Like
So anyway,
not woo woo, start smoking and
yeah. You're right. You're right. In the clear. Anyway, this experience was really good because I was able to have a good conversation with her. She was advocating for me. I felt supported. And so today we're kind of talking about how do you advocate for yourself in this new phase of experiencing, especially, I think for me, I feel like it's a new phase because when I had my kids, it was all about the OBGYN. Like we
totally.
were, like I was there all, I felt like he was my best friend.
And my point on that, you and I have talked about this when we were having babies, there were all kinds of books, what to expect when you're expecting. Everybody talked about it. There was guidance. Now, again, we weren't, I'm sure now there's all kinds of things on the internet, TikTok, you name it. There's plenty of things to follow. But back then, there was just so much information, parenting classes, pregnancy, Lamaze. And even, when we were adolescents and first going into puberty, we got our little book and we got the film, what to expect. There were actually all kinds of books that were about girls going through it. So you kind of learn from other people's experience.
Yeah.
And then we get to menopause, and I feel like it's much better now, but it was more of a punchline than anything else. It
Yeah.
was more of a joke in movies. If it was, and I'm even thinking of menopausal type books were pretty much from humorists about how funny and, the right. And
Yeah.
but it's starting to blossom into an open conversation, which I love, back to the advocacy, because so much happens during menopause. There's so many things as we age that change. Because my husband, he experiences different things where he's like, I had no idea. Did you
Yeah.
know that this level changed when you get older? And I have to check my thyroid, more thoroughly. And yeah, so we have to become our own advocates and find that information. And I am um, encouraged by how they're more open conversations on aging and not just, well, that ship has sailed and, well,
Yeah.
you just got to expect things to go downhill.
I really think the baby boomers are what changed that conversation because I'm thinking of my mom is at the beginning of the baby boomers and my sister is at the end. And my mom, I think they started to be more open right at that point, but maybe not necessarily all of them. But by the time my sister was hitting it, it's a conversation. And
Right.
there's that play, what is it called? The menopause. My sister and I went and saw it a long time ago. I can't remember
Not
that.
monologues, that's the vagina
Yeah.
monologues, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, there's a show. It was
I just
pretty.
said vagina too, so.
We're just all over the place today.
Period, yeah.
All right. So I was thinking when you were talking about how it was a joke, kind of, but not really talked about, I thought of the Golden Girls. And
Mhm.
I couldn't remember them ever talking about it at all. But then I went and looked it up and they did, but they called it which most people call it the change,
Good thing.
that was the change. That's what it used to be called. And then they have a whole episode or two that's called The End of the Curse. And that's about menopause.
Really?
And I was like,
Okay.
well, because one of them thinks they're pregnant. Blanche thinks she's pregnant. And it's actually
Actually, I have to
menopause.
go and look, I think that, I don't know if it was just the late popularity again of Betty White, but Golden Girls, there's a lot of clips and things that are showing up on my feed. I think they've had a resurgence of popularity.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Maybe it's just because, Big Brother's looking at me on my phone and I'm going to look something up, right?
Yeah. So how do we go about do you have tips on how to advocate for yourself in
Yeah,
the health? What do you think?
well, I think you gave a great example. So I'm going to use an example of my mom. Well, when you talked about baby boomers. So my mom is obviously even older than us. So she's dealing with even more what I call stereotypical of, oh, you're just getting older, that's just these things happen. But what happens with my mom is she's in really good shape for her age, very good shape and very good health. So it's an interesting story because when you brought that up, I thought my mom really advocated for herself when a series of doctors were poo-pooing her concern for her health. And the language that was used was, come on, you're just fine. You're much better than most people out there. And her point was, I'm only concerned about myself. I don't really want to know how I rank, and I want to take the best care of myself to preserve my health and my body. So the story is, this was a few years ago. She had asked me to go to a doctor's appointment with her because she said, I just want you to hear what they're saying. Um, they basically are telling me I'm asking too many questions. And will you listen and go with me? What had happened was her primary care doctor was pretty thorough, but again, followed those same words of, oh, you're doing fine. She had reviewed her billing, her medical record that said that she had, and I'm just going to make something up. It was like a uncontrollable, use the word uncontrollable though. It wasn't high blood pressure, maybe it was cholesterol, and it really
Yeah.
bothered her. So she was working really hard at trying to get it under control and was poo-pooed a bit on, you're actually fine. This just happens. She worked really hard to bring her counts down, but then she had a little episode that she needed to see a cardiologist. And when I went with her, Amy, he did pat her leg. She kept asking questions and basically kind of shut her up and said, you need to stop overreacting about this. And it was because the test came back. It'd be kind of like, let's say your test is something similar to yours. Your test came back and it was in the good zone, but it wasn't great. And there were things that made her concerned. So she had a lot of questions. But what I appreciate about my mom is rather than just walking away saying, I better not ask questions anymore. He's a busy doctor. And he told me, you know,
Yeah.
in so many words, she was told, you're wasting my time, right? I've got
Mhm.
other more sick people to deal with. But she advocated for herself. And she even, asking me to go with her to say, what are you hearing? And am I wrong to ask these questions about my own body and my test because it didn't come back perfect, even though it was better
Yeah.
than most? Um, yeah. So back to the baby boomers, I would tell you, Amy, my grandparents, that's the generation that dressed up in their best clothes and would sit in the waiting room for 3 hours and whatever the doctor said was, right.
Yeah.
And my parents definitely ask more questions. And I think that does come back to me. So the very long story in answering your question is sometimes it's a second set of eyes or ears, right?
Yeah.
And I think Garrett and I do that a lot. Like I'll come back and say, okay, here's what the doctor said. Here's the test. What's your test? Do you think, a sounding board? Should I pursue this? Should I research it more? Should I get a second opinion? Same with him on some of the tests or the feedback, because doctors are busy. We've been bounced around. You're in a new circumstance where you have a new provider where they don't have the long history. They have a lot of stuff going on in their world, whether they're in corporate medicine or they're a busy general practitioner. Um, but I think to advocate for yourself is to ask a second opinion. And sometimes the first step is not with another provider, but probably the loved ones around you to say, let's talk through what the next step is. Somebody who cares, that sees you as an individual and your life matters as its own value and not comparatively to everybody in your age group.
Right. I think that's well said. I love that, bringing someone with you to hear, especially when it's not just a normal appointment, when there is something that we're trying to figure out, resolve, possibly start a treatment, whatever it is. And I- I'll tell you a story. When Tom's mom was diagnosed with cancer, we went to the hospital with her the first time. She was getting all of her scans to figure out where it was in her body. You know what I mean? Like it was like they found out she had it, and then they got her to the hospital, and we're figuring out how bad it was. Basically, that's what it was. And Tom and I were at the hospital with her. And when the doctor came in and was sharing everything, and we stayed the whole weekend. One of us was always there because we wanted to be there to hear. But the doctor came in, the three of us sat there and we all heard the same thing, but, or we were all told the same thing, but we
Right.
all heard something different. Like
Right.
we all latched on to something that caught our attention. And between the three of us, we could make a complete and I don't know if it was complete, but it made sense when we all came together and to talk about it, and having someone there to ask questions, because a lot of times when you're in that situation, you almost get shocked a little and you don't even know what to ask.
And
And
there's
so,
medical, right, to ask questions, and there's so many things to process. And the reason we're going to see a practitioner, well, anybody, even practitioner, but we're not medically inclined. And I'll tell you, back to having an advocate, my ex-husband's family, my sister-in-law, my dear friend is a physician's assistant, and
yeah,
always our second opinion go to, I tell you, we would lean on her to say, what would you do? What would you, and having somebody who cared about us personally, but had
yeah,
the knowledge too. So she wouldn't sit in on all the appointments, but she was the second set of ears. But bringing somebody, especially once it becomes non-routine or something doesn't feel right, I mean, we only have one body and we only have so much of a shelf life. I mean, we want to preserve it and have the most meaningful lives that we can. The other story I have, Amy, my dear friend who I run with, is a doctor of nutrition, Christy, who was on here for one of our episodes.
yeah,
And I had I was now I know I was in um you're in menopause, help me out, perimenopause, before you have to have 2 years of no period to actually be in menopause, correct? Isn't that but I
I
was
don't know.
still in the stage of having a period, okay?
Yeah,
But it's the beginning of menopause and back to never having a pamphlet.
yeah,
Everything changed. It was literally back to adolescence where my body was just hormones. And in my mind, it's like, okay, this too will pass. That was pretty much my theory in my head. Maybe I Googled a couple of things, but there's no fine line book for how that's going to work. No different than when we were young. We didn't know what year we get our period. We didn't know when
right.
we were going to blossom. It's the same thing. I was just running like you terribly. I was tired. And I kept saying to her in our runs, I'm just, I'm getting old. I just can't do what I used to do. And it was her that kept encouraging me, saying, you know what, Sandy, you should probably bring this up to your doctor, blah, blah, blah. I was literally, Amy, ready to say, I'm done running. My body can't do this anymore. And I went in and she took blood work and I had anemia. Okay. Anemia is this super low blood count. It is, and I remember the first thing my nurse practitioner said to me was, because she and I were friends on Facebook and she'd see me doing things in Colorado, hiking. She said, how in the world did you hike mountains? Do you know your blood level is so low? And I'm like, I literally would be sick. And I had no
Yeah.
idea I had anemia. The fix was and actually I could have gotten as magnesium over the counter, but for comfort reasons, they have it compounded. My friend Christy, the doctor of nutrition, always says to me, always remember the story of Sandy's $30 pill. She was ready to stop working out because she was too old and it didn't feel good anymore. And all it took was a $30 a month compound for Sandy to feel better again. And look at me now. I'm
Right.
sporty spice, I'm doing all this stuff. And I actually found in my journals when I was going back looking for something, the day that once that kicked in and the anemia levels went to back down where my blood count was to the normal levels. Christy said to me when I showed up for a run, we got done. She said, Sandy's back again. And we all did a high five. And
Nice.
it was all caused by heavy periods. And that's what
Oh,
caused it from
yeah.
menopause. But nobody told me this. And what I found out is I guess that is very um, common, but I had no idea. I had no
Yeah.
idea that it was anemia, that the fatigue, there was nothing that related that, that I advocated for myself with the nudging of somebody that said something isn't right, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes you have to advocate for your friends and family if you just know that maybe they're not asking for your advice, but you just know maybe you should look into that a little bit deeper. Maybe this is an option that you need to research, right?
Yeah. And that's good information because I didn't even know that was something that could happen. I that low iron
Oh,
anemia.
iron, thank you. Yes, I
Yeah,
said magnesium, iron,
and that's okay. I remember that from pregnancy because
right?
I had low iron for one of my kids, and I remember having to take the great big iron pill. So,
Right, and they compound it sometimes just to help with your
yeah,
digestive and
yeah.
flushing system.
Yeah, I will say taking the right medicine makes a big difference on your health and knowing what to take. One of the things, so hormones, like I haven't done any hormones because my going through this for me has just been kind of uneventful. I'll just say that. It's just kind of been all right. But one of the things my nurse practitioner told me was women, menopausal women have an increased risk of heart disease and heart attacks. Before menopause, it's very, very low. But after menopause, that's where it increases significantly. And I can't remember the numbers she said. Anyway, she said it's because of the estrogen, because we stop, at least, I don't know if she said that's what it is or that's their theory, but the estrogen, when we lose that estrogen, we start having heart issues. And so she is actually recommending that I start doing estrogen just to keep my heart healthy, which I
Interesting. See, that's something I didn't know about either.
neither had I. I was fascinated. Anyway, so I've learned a lot about my medical care just by going to this really good nurse practitioner. And I was like, she was just wonderful, wonderful. And I'll tell you about taking the right medicine. Trevor was in a couple weeks ago visiting and he showed up with a cough. I don't know if I told you this story. I
Huh.
can't remember.
No, you
He
haven't.
showed up Oh my gosh, he showed up and he was sick as a dog. Like Tom picked him up at midnight. He got there. I woke up, he's coughing like crazy. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm checking him to see if he has a fever. For 2 solid days, he's taking NyQuil, Mucinex, sleeping solid 2 straight days. Okay. Finally, the second day, we got him into urgent care because it's like, all right, this is not just a normal whatever. got him into urgent care that afternoon. He got within an hour, he had his prescription and took his medicine, and it was a steroid and like an inhaler. He was better. Like that was about 3 p.m. By 4:30, they were headed to a Royals game and he was fine.
Wow.
It was bronchitis, but the medicine turned it just like that. And I was like, all right, if you're taking and NyQuil, of course, didn't do anything. All the stuff over the counter didn't do anything. Anyway,
But
you take the right
advocated for the right
medicine,
thing.
yeah, it makes a big difference. It's kind of like your iron.
So, one thing, men versus women, male versus female. Have you ever
Yeah.
heard of Dr. Stacy Sims?
I
I
don't think so.
was mountain biking with a friend and she's very analytical. And she said to me, I don't remember what we were talking about. Maybe we were sharing stories about menopause or probably because we were cranking on the mountain bikes. But
Yeah.
she said, well, you got to listen to this TEDx talk. And I've got it. That's why I'm looking at it on my computer and I'll
Okay.
share it
Yeah.
in notes. But it's called Women Are Not Small Men. And she talks about, she's a nutritionist, and she said the science of nutrition that so often women are treated like a smaller version of men or told to eat the same things, to do the same things. And just like you said with the estrogen, what she was talking about, she gave examples of like a young athlete who was like, yay, I don't have my period anymore. And she's like, that's not good. Even
Yeah.
though her doctor was a male doctor who said, okay, now we can focus on, but how that estrogen and the hormones work, and women are not just small men. We have high hormones and different types of things that feed our bodies. And then at the end, she talks about how, a middle-aged woman and what she was told how to eat and work out was different than what her body actually needed, and back to the estrogen and how to feed the body and how to get strong, how much strength plays. And it might play the same, it might be as important to men, but there are different exercises or different ways to focus on it because our bodies are different. We have
Right.
different chemistry, we have different body parts. And too often, male and female is just what's your body weight, what's your height, and
Right.
based off of that, you get it doesn't matter if you're male or female, right? But it was really good. I listened to the whole TED talk. It's 13 minutes and she talks about brain fog. And then she does have a website too. So I just started digging into her because I thought that made so much sense. And healthcare advocacy is to say, I am different, and be able to say whether you're male or female, we need to be looking at that difference in how our bodies need to be nurtured and how we respond to things too.
Right. And when you feel something that's off, figure it out.
Right.
Yeah. That's what I haven't been sleeping like well. Like I wake up from 2 to 4 a.m. That's my time. And that has been my puzzle for the last couple of years of I had to figure this out. And so still working on it. Still working on
And
it.
I'm with you on that. Still working on it. I've tried different things like timing
Yeah.
of heat, soothing tea. Uh,
Yeah.
what's getting me now is heating up. And that's probably my next thing I'm going to advocate for myself, because my hormone therapy takes away what I call the night sweats, like the true sweats. I still heat up. So
Mhm.
and the heating up is what wakes me up. So no, I'm not going to just accept, I'm not going to sleep well because I heat up. It's something that I shouldn't wait till this fall when I have my annual exam to say, hey, do I need to come in, or is there something we can do to regulate this level so it's not waking me up.
Right. So you can sleep well.
I can sleep well. Sleep's important.
Because sleep is just one of those that compounds into everything else.
Right.
Don't
Right.
sleep well. Yeah. Yep. Um, I was thinking this weekend that we were talking about health and advocacy and taking care of ourselves at this age as I was carrying boxes, doing all those things. I have bruises everywhere. I broke a toe, I think, because everything's in weird places. And so I stubbed my toe and it's purple but there's nothing you can do for a broken toe, right?
I don't know.
I don't think you
Can't they put
can.
a splint on it or no?
It's my little pinky toe. It's like,
Oh,
so, and it's so gross. It's purple and yucky. But anyway, well, this has been a really good conversation. I think it's important. Words of wisdom before we sign off.
words of wisdom. Be an advocate for yourself. Do it. Don't worry if something doesn't feel right, it isn't, right? So whether you start by Googling it, talking to your significant other, running it by friends, don't just accept negative change as okay
Yeah.
because you're getting older or it just shit happens. We're no better saying we can tough it out, right? It's I lean too much on, oh, get over yourself. It could be worse. Well, you know what? It could be better too.
Right. That's well said. Could be worse, but it also
Make
could be
it
better.
better. And when it
Yeah.
comes to your health, make it better, right?
Right.
Mental health too.
Yes. I think that's well put about the mental health, bringing that up because, yeah, getting the help and support in that arena is just as important as your physical health.
All this stuff plays in it.
Yeah.
Your mental psyche, your hormone balance, your all of it.
Yeah. It's amazing. Our bodies are amazing things, I think. Like they're very, very complex. All right. Well, great conversation. Have a good week,
All
and we will
righty.
chat next week. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.